Hello everyone, I'm Cindy Winget, the author of Horror Gothic Mashups, and welcome to my channel. So today is time for my February wrap-up. I got to 6 books this month with 3 DNFs, so let's go ahead and get started. So my first DNF was a NetGalley arc, and the book was called The Dream Hotel. And this one started out promising. It had a really great premise about this woman who is in this futuristic world where basically the government monitors you, and then if they deem you dangerous to people around them, then they'll put you in this facility that's supposed to observe you for like 3 weeks to make sure that you're not going to commit a crime. So it reminded me a lot of Minority Report, and I absolutely love that movie, and so that's why I requested this one in the first place. And I really was enjoying it in the beginning. I enjoyed learning about the new world and about this facility, and you know, she was there because she was deemed dangerous to her husband, like she was going to kill her husband because of a dream she had. So that just was very intriguing. And so I was really liking the first third of this book. But after a while, it just got very repetitive and the pacing was very slow, and I just kind of got bored after a while. And so by the halfway mark, I just decided to give up because I just wasn't enjoying it anymore. But when I DNF books, I always feel the need to like read the last few chapters. I don't know why. I just want to know the ending. I want to see how it ends. And usually that would tell me that it was a good thing I DNF'd it, and that happened to be the case this time because I read the ending and it was pretty lackluster in my opinion, and it was just like, really? That's the ending? I don't know. It made the book almost feel pointless, but this wasn't a science fiction thrill ride like I thought it was going to be. It was more like a commentary on how society is and how it treats women and just like different things like that. Like it was a lot more slower and contemplative than it was like a thrill ride, which is what I was hoping it was going to be. I just wanted to learn about the world and, you know, figure out this futuristic government and stuff, and that's always the appeal for me. And I did get that in the beginning, but like I said, after a while I was like, okay, I understand now. And now it's just a bunch of these women in this facility, and every time they do something even remotely like bad, like they didn't clean up their bedroom space or something, you know, they left a towel on the floor or something, then the guards would tack on extra time. So they're supposed to be there for 3 weeks, but they keep getting their dates, you know, pushed back. So now she's there for like 2 years when she was only supposed to be there for 3 weeks, you know, which is interesting. But you know, when that happens consistently over and over and over again, it's like, okay, I get it, let's move on to something else. So yeah, this one sounded good, but the execution of it just wasn't for me, so I gave up about halfway through. So I did have one other NetGalley arc, and this was a YA horror novel called Deadstream. And this one actually worked very well for me. I really enjoyed this book a lot. So this is about a girl who was in a car accident and her best friend ended up passing away. And now she has like PTSD and major anxiety over it, to the point where she doesn't even want to leave her bedroom. And, you know, she's just like scared of the world now. And so obviously her parents are very nervous for her and they try to help her, but she just wants to stay in her room and not have contact with anybody. But she finds companionship through the internet, and so that kind of keeps her sane as she has people online that she talks to, because she's a YouTuber that does live streams doing video games. And so she's found a community online that she can kind of lose herself in, and then she doesn't have to think about the scary world in real life. But that very thing that was keeping her sane starts to creep into her life and be the most dangerous thing, because there's something nefarious happening on the internet, and all of these live streamers are being affected by it to the point where they kind of go catatonic and they're just staring at the screen for hours, and they don't eat, they don't sleep, they don't move, you know. And so people are in the chat being like, what the heck is happening, you know, and they're trying to figure out what's happening to these live streamers. But I thought this book was fascinating. So if you enjoy books that has a lot to do with influencers and online stuff and technology, then this book will really work for you. If that's not your thing, then this book's not going to work for you, because pretty much the entire book is centered on, you know, social media and being an influencer and all this stuff. And it flew by really quickly because it has a lot of like mixed media stuff in there. So you get like text messages and you get live streams and you get, the chats and this, that, or the other. And it really made the book go by really quickly. But I don't know, this book really worked for me. I thought it was really fun, really fast paced, and I really enjoyed it. It wasn't quite 5 stars, but I would give it 4.5 stars. And this one comes out April 1st. So I recommend you pick up a copy if that sounds interesting to you and if you are okay with YA books. So for my in-person book club, the book chosen was The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. And I was really excited that this was chosen because I've seen a few booktubers reviews on this book lately and they all seem to really enjoy it. And I wasn't originally going to pick this up. I've seen it around for a few years now and it sounded entertaining, but I was just like, whatever. But those reviews really like pushed me to want to buy it. And so when that ended up being my book club pick, I was like, great, that's a great excuse to buy this book because I was going to anyways. So I was really, really excited that this one was chosen. So this is about a group of 4 older people that live in like a retirement village. So they're in like their 70s or 60s. And they dubbed themselves the Thursday Murder Club because one of them used to be like a detective or something. And so strictly taboo because you're not supposed to take the files with you. But she did. This lady took files when she retired. And so her and this other lady at this retirement village, they would spend their Thursday nights poring over these cold cases and trying to see if they can solve them. And so it was always on Thursdays because, you had like bingo one night and like jigsaw puzzles the next night or whatever. And that was the only time that was available that they could spread out their files and figure out these murders. Unfortunately, the lady that brings these cold cases, she ended up going to a home instead. I think she had dementia. And so her friend, though, wanted to continue the Thursday Murder Club. And so she kept recruiting people at her retirement village. And so now they're up to like 4 or 5 members. And then one day, the guy that helped build this retirement place where they live ends up being murdered. And so now they have a live murder to solve instead of a cold case. So it's a cozy murder mystery, basically. And it's very British. So sometimes you might be lost. Like there was one part in the beginning that kept talking about weight, but they used stone. And I'm like, I have no idea what weight that is. But anyways, very, very British. But this is a very beloved novel. Like everybody seems to adore this book. For me, I did not. So this is the second book that I decided to DNF because I just couldn't get into it. I forced myself to read till page 68 and then I was like, why am I forcing myself? Probably because it's a book club book and normally I would struggle through so that I could talk about it at book club, but I just couldn't do it. All of these characters were just very flat because there's so many of them and he jumps POVs like constantly. So you get like 3 pages of this person and 3 pages of this person and then 3 pages of this person. And there wasn't enough time to really know who these people are. And then one of them was a diary entry, but it doesn't have anything to indicate that it's a diary entry. And so when I first started reading it, I thought it was like a breaking of the fourth wall thing, which I really don't like. It's just not for me. But then all of a sudden, like a few chapters in, it was like, okay, diary, that's all I'm going to say today. And I'm like, oh, it's a diary? So I don't know why her point of views were only in diary form, but then everybody else's POV was in real time. Like, I don't know. It just didn't work for me. And I guess this book is supposed to be humorous, but I didn't really find anything humorous in it, at least so far. And the guy that was murdered was kind of a slimeball anyways, so I really don't care why he was murdered or who murdered him because I don't care about him in the slightest. So I'm like, I don't care about the murder mystery. I don't care for these characters. I couldn't get into it. I was pretty much bored from the very beginning. I was 20 pages in before I wanted a DNF, and I forced myself to read this page 68. So I know that's probably going to hurt some of you guys because it seems to be that that's a very unpopular opinion. But I'm kind of starting to figure out that I'm just not a cozy mystery person. Some of them will work for me, but more often than not, I just don't enjoy cozy mysteries. I just don't think I'm the audience for it. So that was kind of a bummer. I was really, really upset actually because I was excited, but it is what it is. And then I also did a vlog and a tier ranking of all of Grady Hendrix' books, and the reading vlog that I did was for his newest book, which is Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. And I gave this a 3.5 star. I really enjoyed it and then didn't at the same time. So the beginning and the end I really enjoyed. I loved the setting in the 70s, and I loved all the historical aspects because this is about a group of girls who go to this home for pregnant women, or pregnant, well, I say women, but they're not, they're teenagers. So this is for like teen pregnancies. And you know, back in the 70s, it was very embarrassing and shameful to get pregnant. And so out of shame, their parents would send them to these homes where they could have their baby, you know, away from the public eye, and then come home after having given up their child for adoption and just act like nothing ever happened, you know. I was out helping an aunt during the summer, you know. So anyways, so I really enjoyed the setup. I really enjoyed the ending. It gave me a lot of feelings. Having had children myself, I just, you know, it hit me in the feels in the last part of this book, and it was pretty emotional. And it gave me, you know, flashbacks to having my own kids and, you know, being pregnant and going through the whole labor process. Although at least I had my husband and the doctors weren't quite so rude to me. So, you know, different for them, unfortunately. All of the adults in this book are pretty much despicable, except for Hagar, who was the cook. And she was the only one that really helped them. But unfortunately, it's the witchcraft part that I had a problem with. I don't know why, like, it's not terrible. I didn't hate the witchcraft part, but I was kind of indifferent to it, and it was a large part of the book. And this is a really long book, and so the middle just seemed a little bit tedious to me, and I was kind of starting to, okay, like, move on to something else. But it's not going to move on to something else because that's the whole point of the book. But I don't know. I just didn't love the witchcraft parts. I did like that they were bad witches. I do enjoy that. But yeah, I don't know. The witchcraft parts just didn't really do it for me, and it made the book seem way longer than it needed to be. But I still really enjoyed this book at the same time. So the only reason I gave it a 3.5 instead of a 4-star is I have a couple of other Grady Hendrix books that I've given 4 stars to, but I enjoyed them more than this one. So I'm like, okay, well then that can't be a 4-star, but so I just plunked it down to 3.5 stars. And then I still had one Grady Hendrix book that I hadn't read yet, and so I needed to read it to do my last video, and that was Horror Store. I believe this was his debut novel. I could be wrong, but I ended up DNFing this book. It just wasn't for me, which makes me incredibly sad because I love the premise and the setup, because you have this store that's like IKEA, but it ends up being haunted, and I just thought that sounds so fun. You know, I love haunted house books, and the fact that it's at this big furniture store and it's happening with coworkers, like, I just thought that was going to be so fun. But unfortunately, it just didn't really work for me because it wasn't scary to me at all, and it was, some of the haunting stuff was just a little too bizarre. But mainly the characters, I still really like the characters. They were very, like, stereotypical and flat, and I just couldn't get into them. And yeah, the haunting, like the whole thing behind it, I was just like, meh. So just like with The Dream Hotel, I did end up reading the ending, and it was just okay. So I don't think like I missed anything. And it was kind of a hard book to read just because of the actual shape of this book. You know, it's hard to hold in your hands, and it looks stupid on your shelves. And so I thought it was really cool that he made it look like a catalog. I thought that was really unique and interesting. But in like the practicality of it, I don't love. So yeah, bummer. And then I read a book on my Kindle. I've had this book on my digital shelf for a very, very long time, and I've been wanting to get to it, but I just haven't. But the movie's coming out next month, and so I was like, okay, I really need to read it because I want to see the movie, but I wanted to read the book before the movie. So if you haven't guessed already, I'm talking about Mickey 7. This one I really enjoyed. It was a science fiction novel about Mickey, and he's what's called an expendable because he can be killed, but then they have like a database that has his personality and his DNA, and they can clone a new Mickey. And so they call him an expendable because he's on this mission to find another habitable planet that's not Earth. And that entails a lot of dangerous jobs. And, you know, when you're starting out a new colony, you can't just have colonists dying left and right. You need as many people as you can get to start this new world. And so they have expendables that can do the dangerous, nasty jobs that nobody else wants to do, and then just grow another one, essentially. So that's kind of his job. And they wanted a volunteer because, you know, they don't want to force somebody to have to die that many times because that sucks. But they didn't really expect anybody to volunteer because who would? But Mickey, I don't want to have any spoilers, but something happened to him on Earth that made him desperate enough to leave. And so they're like, really? You want to come be expendable? We thought we were going to have to like conscript someone, but he's like, oh no, I'd love to do it. Well, come to find out, it's not as fun as it seems. But anyways, I loved learning about the world. I loved learning about the futuristic technology and about society the way it is now and all of that. And I really, for the most part, enjoyed this book. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was humorous and it was just fun. But by the time I got to the end, I felt like the more I thought about this book, the less I liked it. I still like it, and I'm still going to give this book probably 4 stars, or well, maybe 3.5 stars. But at the same time, the ending was not good. It was a pretty lackluster ending, in my opinion. And he has this girlfriend on this colony, and she's the flattest, most boring character I've ever read. Like, I don't know anything about this girl other than her name, and she's Mickey's girlfriend. Great. Like, there's no reason to even have her in the book, honestly. Except for, like, one scene that happens, and I didn't care for that scene. I was like, really? This is how... Well, I guess I should explain before I say that statement. So Mickey, his friend thinks he dies and clones another Mickey. But turns out that Mickey survives and makes it back to the camp or whatever. And so now there's 2 Mickeys, but he can't tell anybody about it because the commander is very much against expendables anyways for like religious reasons. And so he's afraid that he would just scrap the project altogether and just kill both of them. And, you know, there's kind of this existential dread of being killed when there's 2 of you because it's like, is this really me, or am like I'm me and he's Mickey 8 and we're different, you know? Like, so anyway, so he's trying to hide the fact that he has this clone. That's like the entire premise of the book. So I had to tell you that to make this next statement make sense. So something happens, you know, which finally exposes the fact that he has a clone, and the way they find out, oh my gosh, I just rolled my eyes. I was like, are you kidding me? This is how they find out. Like, that is so stupid. But I don't know. And yeah, the more I thought about this book, it was like a lot of things needed to be fleshed out more. Like, he just kind of gives you drips and dollops about this world and about his life. And it more read like a slice of life, but in a future scientific setting, rather than actually having a plot. You know, there's this whole plot line with the creepers that's very, very surface level, which is the only like sentient life forms on this new planet that they come to are the creepers. But like the whole plot line with them is just very superficial. It's not fleshed out. It's just kind of there, you know, and all of his relationships and all of the different things, like nothing was fleshed out very well. And so it felt more like a slice of life science fiction novel. But like I said, I really did enjoy this book. I really did. I thought it was fun. But it was just thinking back on it, I was like, okay, it was fun, it was humorous, but it could have been better. Like, I could see where it could have been so much better if it was just a little bit longer and he fleshed the plot out better and like upped the characterization. There was some plot holes too. There was like a couple of things that happened that I just never mentioned again, and you're like, why did that even happen then? So yeah, not a perfect book. I mean, like I said, I did really enjoy it. It wasn't until I reflected back on it that I was like, it was good, but it could have been a lot better too. So yeah, probably about 3.5 stars. And then in honor of Valentine's Day, I read a couple of books that are centered around the holiday. So I read Be Mine by Jane McFadden. This is a point horror book. And this is about a woman who's being stalked by this guy who keeps leaving like hearts on her locker or on her door or on her car or whatever. And so, she has like a secret admirer. But, it's never, this, oh, sweet secret admirer. It's always nefarious. And she already has a boyfriend. So it was also problematic. But I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was really fun. I thought it was pretty well written. I enjoyed the characters. I thought they were really fun. And there's one grouchy old guy that used to be that was their high school teacher that they go take care of, because he's just all alone in his house and they try to make sure he's okay, but he's all like, he's one of these guys that's like grouchy and grumpy, but he does appreciate their help and they are friends with him. So I really loved his character, and I don't know, I just thought the characterization in this book was good. I thought the writing was good. I thought it was a solid YA book. I read like a better written R.L. Stine, basically. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I have a hard time rating these because I'm like, I couldn't find anything wrong with it, so I'd probably just give it 5 stars. But it doesn't have like the same feel as like this is a 5-star that I'd read over and over again. But at the same time, I would give it 5 stars because I don't think there's anything wrong with this. Like, it was just a fun, nostalgic read. So yeah, so if you wanted to pick up something a little bit thrillery or horror-y for Valentine's Day, this is a good one to pick up. And then speaking of nostalgic reads, I was a huge fan of Sweet Valley High when I was a kid. So I read this Sweet Valley Twins book called Lila's Secret Valentine. And I really enjoyed this one too. I thought the plot was really cute and really fun. This is about Jessica's best friend, Lila. If you know, you know. But she basically wants this guy to ask her to the Valentine's Day dance at school, but he ends up asking somebody else. And so all of her friends are horrified and like sad for her, but she doesn't like feeling pitied. She doesn't like to feel like she's going to be the unpopular girl that has to go to this dance by herself. And so she makes up a fake boyfriend that, oh, I'm fine because I'm going with this other guy and he's better anyways. And so she comes up with this elaborate guy that's taking her to the dance. But as the dance gets closer and she doesn't really have a guy and she's trying to keep her friends from knowing that she doesn't have anybody to go with, it's getting harder to keep this lie going. I thought this was really fun and cute and I enjoyed it. I thought they were a little bit young to have some of these plot lines though. There was some other stuff going on too. And they're only 12. So I'm like, this read more like a high school instead of like a junior high. So, they would have been like, what, 7th graders? So they're a little young for some of these plot lines, but I still thought it was really fun. Oh, I guess I need to give a rating for this. Probably like a 4 or a 4.5 star. And then this is a legit 5-star read that I absolutely love. And I had to read a romance in February, and I finally got to Emily Henry's new book, Funny Story. And I love this book. It was so good. So I didn't think anything was going to knock off Book Lovers on my favorites for Emily Henry, but this one just might have, because I just absolutely adored these characters and I had so much fun with this book and I just really enjoyed it. So this is about a woman whose fiance breaks up with her like a week before their wedding. And so obviously she's devastated, but even more so, she's kicked out of the house and now she has nowhere to live. And so she ends up becoming roommates with this guy, Miles, who happens to be the boyfriend of the girl that her fiance left her for. So they're both heartbroken and devastated, and now they're living together. And then they start to realize that maybe they like each other. So I had so much fun with this book. I thought it was really good. A good, solid romance. So if you're looking for a good romance for next February, or obviously throughout the year, then I would highly recommend picking this one up. Emily Henry does not disappoint. Hey everyone, this is Cindy from the future. I'm really glad that I recorded my video on Monday and got most of it edited on Monday, because Tuesday and yesterday and today I am just not feeling good. I'm very sick. But I did read one more book this month, and so I wanted to mention it. My husband thinks I'm crazy. He's like, you're sick, just take care of yourself. You don't need to record a video. But it'll bother me that I missed a book because I'm kind of OCD that way. So forgive my appearance and that I might not be as, perky as normal, but I did want to mention this last book that I read, and that was The Vengeful Dead by Darcy Coates. So this is the last book in the Gravekeeper series. It just barely came out, which is why I just barely read it, is I pretty much got it the day it came out and then read it at the very last part of February. So anyways, I can't tell you too much about this because, like I said, it is the last in a series. But I've really enjoyed this series a lot. But I will say that the first 3 books were the best. I'm so sorry my dogs bark in the background. I swear every time I go to record a video, they start barking because nobody's downstairs with them, and so they go outside and bark. But anyways, forgive me for that. But so this series, the first 3 were my favorite in the series because I liked the atmosphere and I liked the ghostly stuff better than when they're taking down the company. If you've read the series, you know what I'm talking about. That part's a little bit more, I don't think clinical is the right word, but that's the word I'm going to use. It doesn't have that same feel, that same atmosphere about it as this cozy little, ghost story as the first ones had. But I did still enjoy the conclusion to this book, and I still think it's well written, and I just love these characters, and I love the town of Blighty. And one thing I will say is Darcy Coates does try to put like a tiny little ghost story in each book, even the ones that got more and more into the major part of the plot. She still inserted like a little ghost story just so you're not completely away from that storyline. So I do enjoy that she does that, even if it is more of a subplot. So I really did enjoy this. I'm sad to see the series end, but at the same time, it's not one that I would want to go on forever and ever and ever because it's not necessary to. So I'm glad she didn't like unnecessarily drag it out, even though I am sad to see it end. But I'm excited to see what else she comes out with next. So that's exciting. And again, it's not a huge deal, but I did have something else to say about Deadstream. So this one I couldn't give a perfect 5 stars to because there was the epilogue that kind of was a little bit weird to the rest of it. And I forgot to mention this when I talked about it earlier, so I thought I'd mention it now. But I really enjoyed the story a lot, but it seemed like the message was, to get off your screens and, go touch grass basically, and to not be so much online, that you need to appreciate your real friends and your family and all that. And so the epilogue was she just like immediately went back to being a live streamer, and that's the bulk of her day. And, that was a little bit strange because it kind of takes away from that message. I mean, she does make a point to go outside, but I think it was less being off your screen and more like, I have PTSD where I can't even leave my room. So it's good that I force myself to make it outside, But I mean, she does make a point of like going for a walk each day. So, I mean, maybe the message is still there, but it just kind of seemed to underline that message just a little bit. And then there was one line in particular that I thought was funny, because her parents were concerned for her mental health being online so much because of all that happened and being in her room so much. And so she's like, well, I just sat them down, I showed them how much money I was making on it, and then they were fine. I'm like, okay, so your parents no longer care about your mental health and your physical well-being as long as you're making money? Okay. Like, that seems kind of heartless, but I don't know. As a parent, that would not be the case for me. I'd be like, yeah, that's great you're making money at it, and I'm glad you enjoy it, but as a parent, it's my job to worry about my kids and make sure they're okay. So I thought that was a little bit strange, but anyways, that's why I couldn't give it the perfect 5 stars, even though I really did enjoy the story for what it was. So anyways, that's all I have to say. Okay, so that's all the books I have for you. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please let me know by hitting that like button. Please subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos from me. I post every Friday, and I will see you in the next one. See ya.